Hello Pokemon trainers and welcome back to another episode of iStarly TV. I'm your host Scarecrow as always, and I have another OU or kind of just a Wi-Fi battle here again today. As you can see, here's a little team preview, and again, I apologize for the quality of these Wi-Fi battles. I don't have a screen capture card yet, so I have to use a little cheap kind of camera to record these battles, record them straight from my DS, so they don't look pretty, but I like to do this just because it's different than doing showdown battles. But anyways, Dieter and I, in our hometown, have joined a Pokemon League. The local game store in our town has actually been hosting a Pokemon League every week up until March, and the winner of that league will be the champion, and then the next 4 places after that will be the Elite Four. So they'll be like technically the best trainers for the next season after that. So those will be the trainers to beat. And I've been doing really well. So has Dieter. I'm actually in first place so far, and Dieter's in second. There's about maybe 10 or 15ish people that show up. It fluctuates day to day. Some people show up some days, some don't show up other days and stuff like that, but for the most part I'd say there's been about 10 or 15 people that have showed up in this past couple weeks. But anyways, this is a battle that I had during that league against one of the best players there. I'd say that he showed up late, so he's behind me and Dieter in points because he hasn't battled as many times as we have, but I think he's really good, and he competes really well with me and Dieter. But yeah, so his team was really good. As you can see here, he has a really stall-oriented team. His team is on the top with Venusaur, Cofagrigus, Chansey, Vaporeon, Weezing, and Mamoswine. And mine is on the bottom. It's essentially the same standard team I've been using. So I've used it in other battles previously on this channel on Pokemon Showdown and stuff. So this was a really good battle I had against him. Like I said, going into it, when I faced him, when he challenged me, I knew that it was going to be a very tough battle, and as you'll see, it's going to end up a very, very close battle. Whoever wins is going to win, in a very kind of close way, I guess. But he kept me on my toes the entire time. I feel like I played well in this match. He played very well too. There's a little bit of hacks, but I think that the skill in this battle, the play style between both of us was kind of outweighed the little hacks that did happen. But yeah, we'll get into the battle in a few seconds, and let's see what we're going to do. I think looking at his team, I decided to lead with Rotom just because it can Volt Switch against just about most of anything he has. And if he does decide to lead with Mamo, who can stop the Volt Switch, I do kind of threaten it because I take no damage from Earthquake, and I take very little damage from Ice-type moves, and I can either burn it or go for the Hydro Pump. So as you can see, turn 1, already a very good play. I make the good play by leading with Rotom. He makes the great play by leading with the Pokemon who I said would kind of be a stopper to Rotom's Volt Switching capabilities. So he's going to go lead with Mamo, and I actually went for the Will-O-Wisp here, which is a great play on my part because I figured if he stays in, I can cripple Mamoswine, which is great, and if he switches out into something else, I can burn that. Because he's a stall team, getting residual damage on any of his Pokemon is going to be excellent. And he actually goes into Venusaur, which is probably the best thing he could have gone out for me, because burning this thing, it's Mega Venusaur, as you can tell. Mega Venusaur is so bulky, so getting a burn on that early is just great for me. So I'm already starting out really well. I'm going to go for the Protect here just to scout what he's going to want to do. Mega Venusaur usually runs like Leech Seed, maybe Giga Drain, maybe Sludge Bomb, Synthesis, sometimes Sleep Powder. So I wanted to see what he would do against me. He does try to go for the Giga Drain, was it? I think it was the Leech Seed actually. And so I'm just going to be able to Volt Switch out of there after scouting what he's going to want to do. And now I'm going to be able to go into my Trevenant, predicting that Leech Seed, and he does go for it again. And actually, I think he went for Toxic the first turn, and then predicting me to stay in, he went for the Leech Seed, but I predicted him to predict that. So I went into Trevenant to take the Leech Seed. Then I went into Excadrill to predict him to go for the Toxic now. And as you can see, he actually does do that. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera around a little bit. I was kind of fixing it there. So he does do that. I take no damage from that, and he's taking a lot of burn damage. And at this point, he's scared that my Earthquake will take his Venusaur out in one hit. I'm not sure if it will, but it'll do a lot because Excadrill is pretty powerful. So I'm just going to go for the safe Earthquake here. And this is where I kind of start losing momentum a little bit. I mean, I am at the advantage now just because I've taken his Venusaur down to less than half health and because I have a powerful Pokemon in play. But this is where kind of the momentum shifts in his favor. This is a battle where momentum goes back and forth between us, and that's always a sign of a good battle. So he takes barely any damage from my Earthquake because Vaporeon's extremely bulky as well. And now on the switch to Rotom, he's going to go for the Wish, which is really good for him because I'm pretty sure he's confident that he can take a Volt Switch. Here I'm going to pull a Hard Switch into Talonflame, thinking if he goes for Protect to get the full Wish recovery, then I get a free switch into Talonflame. I just U-turn out. But I also thought he might switch into his Venusaur to pass the Wish to his Venusaur. And that's actually exactly what happened. So that was another good play on my part and on his part too. He wanted to get his Venusaur back to full health. But Talonflame is the one Pokemon on my team that can just easily threaten Venusaur from the get-go. Like, Venusaur does not want to take a Brave Bird from Talonflame, so I think here I just go for the safe Brave Bird just in case he wants to stay in and try some shenanigans. Or, you know, even if he switches out, he has very little Pokemon that can enjoy taking a Brave Bird. And as you can see, he goes into Cofagrigus, who is also a very, very physically bulky Pokemon. I don't know what his EV spread is, but as you can see, it takes more than half damage from that Brave Bird. It takes about maybe 60% from that. And that's a really good sign for me. So at this point, I'm like, okay, if it did that much to his Cofagrigus, I might as well just go for it again. If he goes for Protect to get some recovery, I'll be able to finish it with the next Brave Bird. And if he switches out, you know, like, it'll still do a lot to whatever he switches into. And as you can see, he goes into Weezing, who is yet another good physically bulky Pokemon, and that takes, I mean, for a Weezing, I'd say that's pretty decent damage. Like, Talonflame is not the most powerful Pokemon in terms of damage output, but it's still, obviously it's good because of Gale Wings. But anyways, I'm going to go into Rotom here, what he's going to go for against my team, really, because Weezing is an interesting Pokemon. You don't really run into Weezing that much, so the fact that he has it kind of, I mean, I know what it can do. It's really bulky. It has Will-O-Wisp. It has a pretty good special coverage move pool in the forms of like Thunderbolt, Fire Blast, Sludge Bomb, etc. It's usually going to carry Will-O-Wisp, and then sometimes it has Pain Split. So I just stayed in on the Sludge Bomb. I think here I just go for the Volt Switch. Sorry, it's a little laggy at this part. Here, I think I just go for the Volt Switch to scout what he does, knowing that I can take his hits well and just being able to switch an appropriate check into his Weezing. But he does go into Chansey, which is probably the most bulky Pokemon out there. I mean, it takes special hits really well, and it helps balance the synergy of his team. And anyways, I get the initiative here to go into Lucario, and obviously Lucario just absolutely threatens Chansey, so I'm going to take advantage of that, Mega Evolve, and go for the Bullet Punch, predicting a switch. And he does switch, which is great for me, just because I knew if I went for close combat and he stayed in, I would obliterate the Chansey, but I knew because it's early in the game and he really needs his Chansey, I knew he wouldn't keep it in no matter what. So he does go into Weezing. I thought he'd either go into Weezing or Cofagrigus, so I went for the Bullet Punch because that's the only move I have to hit either of those two. And, you know, it doesn't do enough, and I knew he probably has Fire Blast or Will-O-Wisp, and I don't want to take that. So I'm just going to go into Trevenant, just because Trevenant's probably the best thing on my team to take any of those moves. And I thought if he does go for Will-O-Wisp, I don't want Rotom burned at this point. So Trevenant can maybe take a Fire Blast. I mean, Weezing's not an offensive Pokemon by any means, and if he does Will-O-Wisp my Trevenant, then I do have Natural Cure, so that's fine. He does go for the Fire Blast as a follow-up, and that doesn't do that much. Well, I mean, it does a lot because it's super effective, but I'm able to survive it, which is good enough. And then here I'm going to go for the Will-O-Wisp on his Weezing, which is also really good for me because, again, you know, Weezing is just so bulky. Just getting any amount of damage on that thing will help me immensely in the long run. And it doesn't look like he has Pain Split. If he has, he hasn't revealed it yet. Pain Split would be the only form of recovery on Weezing. And so if he doesn't have any reliable recovery other than Black Sludge, he's going to be taking a lot of damage from the burn every turn. So I go back into Rotom to scout what he's going to want to do and to remove the burn from my Trevenant. I can't stay in with Trevenant any longer. I'm going to need a good switch into it, though, to maybe get off a rest or something. But anyways, I do take that Sludge Bomb pretty well again, get the Leftovers recovery. Luckily, I do not get Poison there, and I'm going to be able to go for Volt Switch again. That's why Rotom is the best Pokemon against his team just because it gives me that initiative. Gets a little bit of damage on his team, but that obviously, as you can tell, the Blissey's taking like 2 whole damage from that. But I'm just going to go into the obvious play, which is Lucario. He's going to switch out of there. Obviously, again, it's still relatively early in the match to where he doesn't want to overpredict with his Chansey and lose it. I go for the safe close combat there, thinking that maybe he'd stay in or something, or maybe he wouldn't switch in Cofagrigus, because Weezing at below half health and Venusaur at below half health, neither of them can take a close combat from just an absolutely powerful Lucario. So Cofagrigus is the only thing on his team that can switch into close combat, and that's exactly what he does. So that was a good play on his part. Now he's going to go for the Trick Room, which is actually pretty bad for my team. Rotom doesn't really care, Trevenant doesn't really care, but Excadrill and Mamoswine are at a weird speed tier to where they're faster than most defensive Pokemon, meaning they're faster than my opponent's entire team, meaning that with Trick Room they're going to be slower. So yeah, Trick Room is bad for me. It's an interesting little kind of wrench that he threw in there by using Trick Room. I think he also has like Nasty Plot on that Trevenant and or sorry, that Cofagrigus. But anyways, here I went for the Hydro Pump. I got a crit. It did barely anything. I mean, freaking Mega Venusaur obviously. But now I'm just going to go for the Volt Switch. I think we're speed tied because earlier I was able to outspeed with Volt Switch before he went for Leech Seed, and now I lose the speed tie, which I'm... Oh, no, sorry. We're not speed tie. I'm dumb. We're in Trick Room, obviously. I forgot about that. So that's going to allow him to go first with Giga Drain, and then I'm going to go for the Volt Switch. So that was a bad kind of play on my part, but it's also good because it allows me to go into Talonflame safely without taking Giga Drain, Toxic, or Leech Seed. So, you know, as little damage as Talonflame can take, or the less damage Talonflame takes, the better. So here I'm going to go for the Brave Bird, figuring that nothing on his team can switch into that at this point. All the Pokemon that can usually switch into that are weakened. But the bad thing about him going into Chansey here is that Chansey has such high health that when I go for the Brave Bird, it's just going to wipe my HP out. And as you can see, here I decide to... because I knew I had that choice. If I switched out, you know, then he'd get the initiative. I just wanted to stay in. If I switched out, he would go for Soft Boiled with his Chansey, and I need that thing dead. I knew that I needed Talonflame later in this match, but I thought at this point, killing off his Chansey or killing off one of his Pokemon at the cost of my Talonflame's life was better than keeping Talonflame for later. But as you're going to see later, it's going to come back to bite me, because Talonflame would have really, really helped me with the rest of his team. Anyways, I'm going to go into Mamoswine on the free switch. I get up my Stealth Rock, and then he goes for the Scald. He does burn me. I also do get a little bit of Earthquake damage on that thing, but he's also going to go for the Wish before that. That turn kind of skipped. Sorry, the recording was a little off there, but as you can see, he gets off the full Wish. I get off my Stealth Rocks, but I am burned, and this is kind of a bad play on my part. I just went for the Earthquake as a last-ditch effort just to let my Mamoswine die. A better play probably would have been to just switch Mamoswine out for Death Fodder later, because he does go for the Wish there. Vaporeon's just, at this point, I was really just scared. I was thinking, okay, I was playing great in the beginning. In the middle, I started kind of not playing as great, and my opponent started playing a little better. And at this point now, I feel like my opponent is on top, because this is not looking good for me at all. I have to switch in Trevenant as kind of a last-ditch effort. And he does, as you'll see here, he does reveal to have the Ice Beam. But luckily for me, I am faster. I do get off the rest, and I'm like, okay, if he goes for Scald, I can easily take that. Or he might switch out or something. But he has Ice Beam. And that's going to do a good, clean, I don't know, 55% to me. Maybe 60. And I cannot stay into that. So, I mean, it's good, though, because I got a little more recovery on Trevenant than I had before. And I get to heal off the Sleep with Natural Cure. But I would have preferred Trevenant to be at closer to full health. But I guess beggars can't be choosers, right? So I switch into Rotom here on the Ice Beam. Luckily, I do not get luckily I do not get frozen. And once again, I'm just free to just go for that Volt Switch and get a little bit of damage on whatever he switches in, and get the initiative by switching in an appropriate check or counter. Oh, I guess I actually just go for the Protect. Okay, sorry. But at this point, his Venusaur is at pretty low health. However, the problem is the fact that he's just going to go for Synthesis. I cannot kill him with a Rotom, and he can live, obviously, Volt Switch and Hydro Pump extremely well, as you see, and he's just going to go for the Synthesis there. But here I make a very kind of desperate play. I'm like, okay, the only way I'm winning this battle is by sweeping his team, either with Talonflame, who is now dead, or with Lucario. And my first obstacle for Lucario is going to be this Venusaur. So what I do here, make the extremely risky play to go into Lucario and just start setting up with Power Up Punch. That's just, I mean, Power Up Punch will get a little bit of damage on that Venusaur and it'll raise my attack. So that's why it's better than Swords Dance in some regards. Here, he actually does go for the second Synthesis, which is good for me because it means I get another free turn of Power Up Punch. But, you know, this was extremely risky for me, but to be quite honest, I don't think I had really anything that could take on this Venusaur better than Lucario, and Lucario can't even take on Venusaur really well, so that just shows you how bad of a predicament I am in at this moment. But like I said, the only way I'm winning this battle is by sweeping him. I cannot outstall him at this point just because the quote-unquote stall or defensive Pokemon I have are Trevenant and Rotom, and those are both inferior to what he has. And then I have Excadrill and Togekiss in the wings. Do I have Togekiss? Maybe I don't. I have Excadrill in the wings. Only Excadrill. Anyways, I do go for the close combat there, knowing that I'm at +2. His Venusaur's at half health. He can't switch anything into that, and if he switches in Cofagrigus, I could probably just pick it off with a Bullet Punch. And then I just annihilate his Vaporeon. Then he switches in Weezing, who also will just absolutely die. I go for the Bullet Punch here just in case he wanted to predict the close combat and go into his Cofagrigus, which would have been a great play on his part. But he does just stay in. I am able to kill it off with a +2 Bullet Punch. And now I'm getting a sweep going. However, this is where Stealth Rock comes in handy because it does take him down to less than half. But as you can see here, he barely lives that Bullet Punch, that +2 Bullet Punch, and now he's going to make my Bullet Punch weaker by changing my ability to Mummy. Now here, he does miss the Will-O-Wisp, which is pretty crucial, but at the same time, as you're going to see, he gets Leftovers Recovery, then he gets Leech Seed Recovery, and then that, in addition to the bulk of Cofagrigus, and the fact that I no longer have Adaptability as my ability, so my Bullet Punch is weaker, he's actually going to be able to live that again, and this time he's not going to miss the Will-O-Wisp. So I don't think that Will-O-Wisp mattered. It delayed him crippling my Lucario. At this point, my Lucario's burned. He's getting Leech Seed and Leftovers Recovery every single turn. I kept thinking, okay, maybe I'll get a crit, or maybe I'll get max damage, or maybe by some miracle I'll be able to pick this thing off. But at this point, I was really scared because, I mean, Lucario was able to take care of, you know, Vaporeon and Weezing, who were also very, very problematic Pokemon. So that was very helpful, but, you know, I was hoping Lucario would be able to just pick off the rest of his team, and unfortunately that's not going to be the case. He is just going to finish me off there. And that's going to mean that at this point I have Rotom left, Rotom can kill Cofagrigus, which is good because Cofagrigus' special defense is a little lower than its defense. Its defense is massive. So I'm going to be able to pick him off with a Volt Switch, get some initiative. I mean, he gets more initiative because I'm able to switch in Pokemon first, and then he gets to respond to that. But at this point, I have Excadrill left. I think Excadrill and Trevenant are my only two Pokemon, and he's just going to go into his Venusaur. At this point, he was like, good game, you know, he figured he had lost, but as you're going to see, it's still going to be very close in the end. He has Venusaur and Mamoswine left. Mamoswine hasn't done anything all game. I have Excadrill and Trevenant. Luckily, Excadrill's power is able to take out that Venusaur at less than half health. And now he's going to go into his Mamoswine, and I was thinking, okay, hopefully he doesn't have Sash, but luckily I do have Air Balloon, and it's good that I preserved my Excadrill up until now, because it means that he cannot hit me with Earthquake right now. He has to hit me with an Ice move first. So he's going to go for the Ice School Crash, which is a very risky play, because had he missed, that definitely would have won me the game. But he does reveal that he is the Life Orb variant, which means he's going to take some damage from that. Then he's going to be able to pick me off with the Ice Shard, but he's going to take even more Life Orb damage. And that means I get to just go into my Trevenant. It's either going to be a tie at this point. I figured, okay, my Trevenant is max HP, max defense. I thought, okay, even though he's Life Orb, Stab, Ice Shard from a Mamoswine, I was able to survive it, and that's going to actually make him lose because he's going to, you know, die to Life Orb recoil. So as you can see, that was a great game. Yeah, I only had Trevenant left. So very, very, very close game. That